Congratulations, your concept paper was selected for funding. Here are your next steps for converting your concept paper to a subgrant agreement. Hi, I'm Danielle King, the Traffic Safety Operations Coordinator for the FDOT State Safety Office. Your agency would have received notification of selection via two methods. Those with system access would have received an email indicating that a specific document had been selected to receive funding and requires further action. A physical signed letter was mailed to the agency head to indicate the same. If your agency never received the letter or no one received the email, I will go over later in the video how to access a copy of that letter for your records. So there are actually 11 process steps required to execute your subgrant agreement. No work or purchases are eligible for reimbursement until the subgrant agreement has been fully executed. So we're going to watch the statuses as we move through this process to understand how to know when your subgrant agreement has been fully executed. If you've never received subgrants from the FDOT Traffic Safety Office before, you are highly encouraged to pay close attention to Part 5, Acceptance and Agreement, to understand the state and federal requirements associated with the subgrant and the formal reimbursement process that you will have to follow to receive reimbursement of any expenditures for this subgrant. And if at any point you decide you don't want to proceed, you also have the option to withdraw from the subgrant process. So if your agency wishes to withdraw from any concept paper that was selected for funding and not actually proceed with subgrant execution, you can apply the status of subgrant withdrawal requested on each individual subgrant you don't wish to proceed with no penalty. So we're going to briefly go over the 11 steps and who's responsible at each step to actually get this thing executed, and then we'll go through the actual step-by-step instructions for completing it in the system. So step 1 is with you, the subrecipient. This is your first opportunity to review what FDOT has drafted to award you based on the concept paper that you submitted. We've included objectives, evaluation, and minimum performance standards that need to be implemented throughout the subgrant period. If your agency sees anything they're not comfortable with, this is your opportunity to negotiate with your FDOT program manager to make any changes that are amenable to your agency. It's important that you have a dialogue with your program manager prior to making those changes so you don't have any delays in the review and approval later on in the process steps. If you didn't want any changes, or once you've completed the negotiation for step 1, step 2 will actually be implementing a status change in the system to subgrant for FDOT review that lets us know you're ready to proceed. Once FDOT receives notification that you have submitted the language for review, the program manager will double check what you've put in the system is what you discussed. Then the finance manager will take a second review to ensure eligibility, federal compliance, standard language, and they'll actually secure the funds for the grant in the FDOT system and assign an FDOT contract number. And then it goes to the Traffic Safety Administrator, who will take a final review and lock down those terms and submit the document back to the subrecipient so that it can be printed and circulated for signatures. So once the Traffic Safety Administrator has released that document for signatures, the subrecipient will receive an email notification and a My Task in the system that a document requires signatures. At that point, you'll be able to actually print a PDF of the document that can be circulated for signatures within your agencies. Then step 8 will be actually uploading that one PDF document with all the pages of the subgrant document, including the signed signature page, in the system, and then a status change to signatures submitted. That lets us know that there's a signed document ready for execution. The system will notify FDOT when signed documents have been submitted via the status change. So we'll go in and we'll actually review that upload to make sure that all the pages have been uploaded successfully and are readable. Then we'll circulate that through legal and with the FDOT's Traffic Safety Administrator for execution. Once all signatures are affixed to the document, it will be considered fully executed. It will have a start date, and we will upload it in the system and change the status to subgrant awarded, at which time the subrecipient will receive notice in the system that they may proceed with activities per the terms of the executed subgrant. So before we get into the actual instructions for implementing these steps, just want to warn you that the system will time you out after a few minutes of non-activity. So if you step away, answer a call, work on another screen, it's probably going to time you out. You won't know it. The screen will look normal. It'll allow you to type in the fields, but when you hit save, it'll tell you access denied. So save and save often to prevent having to duplicate your entries in the system.
We are going to start off by logging into the system. If you do not remember your username or password, you could use the forgot username or password buttons here to recover that information. I have also provided a video on our training resources on step-by-step to how to do that. So we're going to log in here. When you log in, you will navigate to the home page. On the home page, you will see your My Inbox and My Task. We're going to scroll down and we're going to open My Task. My Task basically identifies anything that's in your court. So for 2022, there is a subgrant that's been awarded, which means that it's in your court to go do good things according to the terms of that contract and or submit an amendment if necessary. You also see that the 2023 document is there in Subgrant Development Status. Subgrant Development Status indicates that a concept paper has been selected for funding and we need to actually develop the subgrant agreement language. So Subgrant Development is what we're here to do today, so we are going to click on that document that is in Subgrant Development Status. When we click on that document that is in Subgrant Development Status, it opens up the Forms menu for that document. In the Forms menu, you will see the original forms that you completed for the concept paper. But now just above that is your letter of selection. By clicking on the letter of selection hyperlink, a PDF form is generated, which is a duplicate of the actual document that was mailed to your agency head, indicating that your concept was selected for funding and included in the highway safety plan, assigned a project number, and for a specific amount. It indicates that you are not done and we need to actually execute a subgrant agreement, and this lovely video you are watching now will guide you through that process. This letter of selection lives in your Forms menu for this subgrant document forever, so if you ever need to recreate it, it's always right there. If it got lost in the mail, nobody got notified, somebody left that was on the list, it's always there for recreation if necessary. So what we're going to do now is start reviewing the individual forms that need to be completed so that we can actually execute the subgrant agreement. So we're going to start with the very first one, titled General Administrative Information. We're going to start Alright, clicking that General Administrative Information tab navigates us to the General Administrative Information form. At the very top, we see a stop sign with a hand indicating that there are 9 items that need to be resolved to satisfy the requirements of this form. Scrolling down, we can see that those items are numbered and provided below. As mentioned before, the system may time out on you if you are inactive for a long period of time. So I suggest that once you complete the first section, so all of the requirements for the subrecipient agency, you save, and then the same for the implementing and so forth, to prevent having to duplicate entry of information at this stage. To note, the subrecipient agency is the funding agency for the subgrant. So it could be the city that pays the bills for the police department is the subrecipient agency, and the police department being the implementing agency that's implementing a high visibility enforcement project, or a university that's our sponsored research that's funding an event for the School of Medicine. So there's just some examples of how to differentiate between the subrecipient agency and the implementing agency. In the event that the subrecipient agency is also the implementing agency, we would need that information duplicated in both sections 1 and 2. Please do not leave implementing agency blank if the subrecipient agency is also the implementing agency. Moving on to items 3 and 4, please note those are relative to the subrecipient or funding agency. So that's the tax ID number and the federal identification numbers. So those would be relative to the information provided for the subrecipient agency. So the tax ID, federal ID for the subrecipient agency, as well as the unique entity identification number or SAM number found on sam.gov. This item number 4 replaces what was previously requested as the DUNS number. DUNS was superseded by UEI in April of 2022. This information again can be found on sam.gov. This does require a login access. Someone from your subrecipient agency finance department should be able to provide this for you. The chief financial officer would be for the subrecipient agency, whomever handles the reporting of audits and compliance. The project director is oversight for the subgrant agreement. As oversight, they cannot receive any benefit under this subgrant. Cannot be named as a salary position, cannot receive overtime benefits, cannot receive travel reimbursement under the subgrant. The project director cannot receive any benefit under the subgrant. So please make sure anyone named here does not intend to work the grant or receive benefit in any way. The financial reimbursement contact is a contact that can provide answers or provide updated documents when necessary for reviewing the reimbursement claims. The project activity contact can work under the grant and works in tandem with the project director for oversight and program implementation. Generally, the project activity contact can provide status of project objectives or reporting requirements with or for the project director. Just to differentiate, the project director cannot work the grant. The project activity contact can, and can also provide high-level information on project objectives and progress if necessary. The payment remittance address is the address where payments for this subgrant will be mailed to. This needs to be accurate and match the information in the state system for the federal ID number. So please coordinate with your finance offices if this is your first time receiving a subgrant. Please ensure that you have the correct payment remittance address for that agency. If this is not your first time receiving a subgrant, please refer to your previous awarded subgrant and copy that information as it has been vetted for correctness. As always, save and save often. In this case, we're going to save and next to move to the next form in the document. Clicking Save Next or Next will navigate you to the second form in the subgrant application, which is the Project Planning and Supporting Data form. Much of this information comes directly from your concept paper and information directly provided by the FDOT Program Manager. For example, the very first item on this form is your statement of the problem. The statement of the problem again comes directly from your concept paper where you identify the traffic safety problem in your area and for your agency. If there were any corrections needed to be made to this particular area, those changes would be noted in the PM/finance comments, or if we were requiring that you make changes to that request would also be listed in the PM finance comments section in blue to the right of the statement of the problem. The second section is the proposed solution. When submitting your concept paper, you had to explain how you would solve your traffic safety problem identified in section 1 and how you would use the resources that you were requesting through the concept paper to solve those problems. In this example, the concept paper included the request for a vehicle. When we're building the subgrant document, we see that the vehicle was not approved for award. Therefore, any reference to the vehicle has been removed from the proposed solution. Please review your proposed solution to ensure that it captures all the activities that you intend to conduct throughout the subgrant period. And it also provides how any resources being purchased by the subgrant will be used to solve the problem. This document is not only the contract between your agency and FDOT, but it is a state document open for any level of audit and public consumption. So please review to make sure that it is accurately depicting the use of the federal funds. Just under the proposed solutions, you will find the project objectives and evaluations that have been entered by the FDOT program manager. These objectives are standards that have been approved by FDOT and NHTSA for proper evaluation of subgrant success. Please be sure to look closely at the objectives that have been prescribed for your subgrant. You'll find things such as quantities and frequencies of things to occur within your subgrant period. Please make sure that your agency can comply with the objectives prescribed for your subgrant. In the event you feel that the objectives are unreasonable or the evaluation matrix are unreachable for your agency, please contact your FDOT program manager to discuss negotiation of terms that are more reasonable for your agency. There may or may not be leeway there in those discussions, but please don't set yourself up for failure if you feel like whatever has been prescribed in quantity or frequency is unreasonable based on your agency and manpower. Just a little system hack in the event you can't read all of the information in any of these sections. These triangles will stretch and bend to allow viewability of words on a grander scale. This doesn't mess anything up, it just increases your viewability of the information. As most of this information is automatically entered for you, if you have no changes, just click Save and Next or Next to navigate to the next form in your subgrant application. So pressing Save Next or Next from your project plan and supporting data form will navigate you to the third form in the subgrant application known as Project Detail Budget. The Project Detail Budget will line out the line items approved for funding within the subgrant document. This is loosely based on the items that were listed in your concept paper. You'll notice that the categories have been rewritten using standard document language that will help with ease of reimbursement in the future. One thing that we really want you to look at, especially under personnel services, is in the narrative, any benefits that are listed. Please ensure that your agency, number one, will be requesting reimbursement of those benefits, and that you are aware that any benefits that are being requested for reimbursement are actually impacted by any overtime. For example, your vision insurance premium would not be impacted by the number of overtime hours worked. Therefore, those benefits would not be eligible for reimbursement based on overtime salaries worked. If you have any questions about what may or may not be allowable under for overtime benefits, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be able to walk through that with you. But the easiest way to think about it is if you have a benefit premium that is just a flat premium and is not relative to your hours worked, that premium would not be eligible for reimbursement for overtime salary benefits. Now, if we're talking about a statewide program where we're actually funding a full-time salary, that's a different story because we're actually funding 100% of those costs, therefore those benefits could be included. What I mentioned was for overtime hours, those benefits would only be relative to benefits that are impacted by working more hours. So as we scroll down, you'll see the items that have been approved for funding. So we are aware that life has changed from when you submitted your concept papers back in January to now we are actually trying to execute the contract document in September. So as you've reviewed your proposed objectives, perhaps you realize that you need funding to print educational materials because you're going to have to do educational outreach as part of your objectives each quarter. So in that case, it may behoove you to create a printing line item to cover those costs. So this is your opportunity to realign funding to make sure you have what you need. Now, it is encouraged that you reach out to your program manager before you start adding or adjusting these line items, just to have a dialogue to make sure that you're not trying to add a line item that may not be eligible for funding or doesn't make sense based on the proposed solution that you've provided. So using my example, I'm going to add a line item for printing. Okay. I'm going to add $200 for that. And in doing so, I'm going to reduce this by $200 to keep my total at $200,000. All right, so I'm going to click Save here. I intentionally did something that is a common mistake. So our edit error has pointed out that you must complete the entire row for expenses. So it just so happens that I have created a new row in expenses. The category was complete, the narrative was complete, the federal funds is complete, but the match column is blank. Therefore, I needed to put a 0 here. When I put that 0 there, it satisfies the requirement for the form and that error goes away. So now we can see that the information has successfully saved and I've added that item number. So let's back up and pretend that I didn't just add that printing, but you're looking at this for the first time and you're seeing that there's a line item for printing and you don't really need printing and you want to take it out and just add more money to speed measurement devices. So in that case, you would reverse the process and you would delete those. Deleted it, right? So we're going to save. Again, I intentionally left off a final step and did not delete that 0 for match. This is a super common error that causes people to pull their hair out when using this budget table. So if ever you get the error that you must complete an entire row, so in this case you were actually deleting a row, you just didn't delete all of it. So when you delete that 0 and save again, then that row is completely gone and you don't get the error about the row anymore. So what it's telling us now is that the total cost of the project does not match the award. And so what it's saying is the total costs of all the items listed above do not match what FDOT is trying to give for this award. Because I reduced that $200, it is now $200 short in the total. So I would want to increase this line item back to $6,000 to satisfy that requirement. And at that point, I have remedied the errors on this form and can move to the next one. Throughout this process, you can navigate between the forms by either hovering over the Forms menu here or actually clicking the Forms menu and it taking you back to where you very first started and can click on each form as you go. So we've covered the general administrative information, project plan and supporting data, budget detail, and now we're going to performance indicators. Okay, so we are now on our last form that needs any adjustment during the subgrant development phase, and that is the performance indicators page. Now, the performance indicators page is pretty much just an acknowledgement of the information that you are being required to perform to, but we're going to kind of walk through that. So the very first part here, it's asking you to click to generate the subgrant terms and conditions. And for anyone that's had a subgrant with us before, you are very familiar with our favorite friend known as Part 5, Acceptance and Agreement. So this is the boilerplate language, the legalese, the devil in the details for the administration of this subgrant. It tells you all the federal regulations, state regulations, grant management requirements, training requirements, audit requirements, instructions for reimbursement, all the good stuff. If this is your first time receiving a subgrant, it is highly suggested that you take a really close look at what the requirements are here before proceeding into subgrant execution to make sure that you can comply with all the requirements that are listed here. So then you'll just close that. That just opens in a separate tab on your browser. You can close that and acknowledge that you have read and agreed to the terms of the conditions if this subgrant is awarded completely. Now, if you were a previous subgrantee and had behaved badly, you may have some special conditions that you also have to comply with, but this is few and far between. However, if you did have special conditions, those would be indicated here. If it is a subgrant for enforcement, it'll be checked yes or no. If this is checked yes, in addition to the performance standards that are listed below, you will also find NHTSA's required activity reporting. So all subgrants with NHTSA funding for enforcement are required to report these 3 items. You'll see this in our enforcement activity reports to help gather this information because we are required to by NHTSA. So if it's an enforcement, you'll see it down there at the bottom. If it's not enforcement, that will not be included in your minimum performance standards. The minimum performance standards are what are used to create your performance report that you provide with each reimbursement claim. So again, review this information to make sure you understand what you're going to report on with every claim. So if it's an enforcement grant, like this example is, the standard minimum performance standard is to collect and analyze data to determine focus areas for targeted speed and aggressive driving enforcement. So when you're submitting your performance report, you're going to say that you reviewed whatever data to determine the location of wherever you were enforcing for the period of time that you were requesting reimbursement. You're going to indicate that enforcements were conducted on what days and where, and then if any educational or outreach activities for speed and aggressive driving were conducted within this month. So if your objectives say it has to happen quarterly, then of course you're not going to have anything to report every month, so you could just put no activities for this month if that applies. So again, there's not much to change here. If you see anything in this minimum performance standard that you think your agency cannot comply with, again, please reach out to your FDOT program manager to discuss any negotiations that can be made with these terms to be more amenable to your agency. So as I mentioned, the only thing you have to do on this page is click that you acknowledge that you have read the terms and conditions and acknowledge that you will comply with them if awarded. So all you do on this box, other than read and make sure you're good with the rest of this, is acknowledge that you read Part 5 and are good with it, and click Save and Next. Then we end up at the very last form that's in the subgrant application list of forms, and that is the agreement signatures and amendments. So because we are in subgrant development, there is no place for you to upload anything because we are still hashing out the terms of this section. You can generate the subgrant agreement which allows you to look at the document as a complete document that it opens up. So we didn't fill out the information on the general administrative information form, therefore this information is blank. This is a good check to make sure that you followed all the steps and filled out all the things. So in our example, we haven't completed that yet, therefore this is blank. But you will notice that if you scroll to the bottom, there are no signatures available at this point. Again, we are in negotiation process. Nobody's ready to sign. What we're doing here is giving you the opportunity to say, I'm okay with this if you are, and then you will submit it electronically to us so that we can make sure that you're, if you made any changes to the terms that we proposed, that we're still good with them, that they are still in compliance with federal regulations. And we also, at that point, will encumber the funds for document execution. So at this point, nobody's ready to sign anything, therefore you can't get any signatures. So if you've gotten this far, you're going to want to double check and see, okay, I think I did everything. So did you? So looking at this, I just hovered over our Forms menu, or you can click Forms menu, and it'll take you back to the big screen where you started. Give it a second. All right, so Forms menu. So it's still telling me that there's something to be done on the General Administrative Information page. So what is it telling me? It says you didn't do any of this, lady. You need to do this stuff. So we'll take a minute to fill this out, and then we'll come back and show how to submit this to FDOT for review. Okay, now that all of the general administrative information fields have been completed and there are no longer any stop signs indicating errors that require satisfaction, we're going to double check and make sure that we have completed everything and are ready to return this to FDOT for review. So a couple ways we can do that. We can click on the Forms menu, look for any stop signs. We can also use the when we're inside one of these forms, we have the option for global errors check. So check global errors. Okay, so we've got some global errors. So what it's saying here is that it's wanting us to resave these pages because we didn't see any stop signs listed here on the Forms menu. It just wants us to resave those pages. So if we start with the project detail budget, we go in there and save and next. Save and next on the performance indicators. I think I missed one. Let's see. That one's saved. We're going to check those global errors again. So yeah, so the project plan and supporting data. Actually, I can just click on it from here also. And it will pull up that, and I'm just going to save and next one more time. So now I'm going to check those global errors one more time. There are no errors to be found, so we should have no problem submitting this to FDOT to review. So where are we at now? So we have updated and satisfied all errors on the forms. We have negotiated our project objectives with the program manager. We feel pretty comfortable with what we put in here. And we talked maybe with them online or shared via Teams message and looked at this. So now we need to send it to FDOT so they can actually start the execution of these terms that we're okay with. So to do that, you're going to have to status change this document to Subgrant for FDOT review. If you do not change the status, it will remain in your court, in your task. Or if you decided after all this review that you really don't want to move forward with the subgrant document, you can always request to withdraw from the subgrant process, and we can take the money and use it for increases somewhere else. And that's okay. There's no penalty to withdrawing if, things happen, but that option is there for you as well. But if you don't do anything, so we're in a beautiful position, right? So everything is correct. We don't have any global errors, so it looks beautiful, but I can't do anything with it at FDOT until you send it to me. So make sure that you apply the status for subgrant review. So subgrant for FDOT review. If you don't give it to us, we can't do anything with it. So make sure you apply that status. Once you have applied that status, this document is no longer in your queue. So you have it open because it's you're in the document, but you'll see that it's in Subgrant for review. So when you go back to your home page, you'll see that you only have one task, and that was the current year Subgrant award that you're working with, and that Subgrant Development document has gone away. If you still see it sitting there in Subgrant Development, you have not submitted it to FDOT. If you want to confirm that FDOT has it, you can always click up here on Organizations and Organization Documents to check the status of any document that you have created in the system. So we'll now see that document 9 is with FDOT for review. Also, you can see that document 11 was not selected for funding, and document 10 is in concept paper and review. So what we can ascertain from this is that document 10 has not received a letter of selection or letter of non-selection at this point, so we're probably still working on that, and we'll have that out to you soon. If it says concept paper not selected, you can click on that document, and just like that Subgrant Development document, you will find a letter of non-selection in place of where that letter of selection was. So that letter of non-selection can be downloaded the same as that letter of selection and opened and reviewed at any point in time. It will let you know exactly why your subgrant was, or excuse me, your concept paper was rejected, and can always be pulled up at any time to review and share with anyone for the status of this particular concept paper. So, concept paper not selected, letters are also kept in the file forever. So if you're waiting for the status of a concept paper and you don't know where it is, always click on the Organization and Organization Documents. Let's do that one more time. Organization Documents to see the status. This one is still waiting a verdict from us. This one got a no. And this one you have completed all your steps and sent it to FDOT review.
So once you've successfully submitted for FDOT review, your program manager will receive notification that the document is ready for execution review. So they'll go in and do their review to make sure the negotiated terms are there in the system as you discussed. Then they'll pass it on to the finance staff, who will conduct a second review and then actually secure the funds in the FDOT system. Then they're going to pass it to the administrator, who will conduct the final review and will actually lock down the terms in the system so that no further changes can be made. But you can print the PDF with signature block at that point. So the subrecipient will receive notification that a document is ready for signature via the email notification from the system. If you aren't getting email notifications, you can always just log into the system periodically and check your My Task. This document will show up in your My Task with a status of subgrant signatures required. This lets you know that you just want to click on that subgrant document to open it up so that you can print the PDF form and circulate it for signatures. Once you've clicked on that document, it'll take you to the Forms menu, and you want to navigate to the Subgrant Agreement Signatures and Amendments form. So you'll click on that link, and then on that page you're going to do the click here to generate subgrant agreement.
In Subgrant Signatures Required status, you will notice that the generated subgrant agreement now has a signature page. Both the subrecipient signature block and the implementing agency signature block need to be completed before uploading to return to DOT. Using the example in the system, we see that the subrecipient agency is City of Example, and the implementing agency is Example Agency Police Department. So in this example, we would expect to see that the city mayor would be signing as the authorized representative for the subrecipient, and the chief of police would be signing for the implementing agency. In the event the city manager has authority to contract on behalf of the city, we would need a copy of the delegation letter that authorizes the city manager to contract on behalf of the city. So in that case, when you upload this document, you would have 30 pages because the document itself is 29, and the additional signature delegation letter would make it 30 pages. So all 30 pages would be scanned into one PDF document and uploaded into the system. Once that document has been scanned and you're ready to upload, you choose your entire agreement and upload it in the system. So you would have all 29 pages of the document and the signature delegation included in one document and uploaded in the system, and save. So once you've saved, you'll be able to see that the file is actually attached in the system. So now you see that you actually have a link to the file and it's uploaded. The last step is to status change the document to signatures submitted. If you don't status change the document to signatures submitted, it is still sitting in your court. If you go to your home screen, you'll still see it in your task as signatures required, even though you've uploaded signed documents. It is in your court until you status change it back to us. So status change to signatures submitted. You can check the status by clicking this little details right here and see that it's in subgrant processing, or you can go back to your home screen, open your My Task. You'll see that that document is no longer in your My Task with a signatures required status, or you can always click back on organization documents, and see that that document is with FDOT for subgrant processing.
So just a few things to remember. Please make sure that both the subgrantee and implementing agency signature blocks are signed. No blank signature blocks need to be uploaded into the system. So if the subgrantee agency is the same as the implementing agency, the subgrantee agency authorized representative would be signing for both blocks. Please do not submit it with only one signature in one block. If anyone is signing on behalf of someone else, we need a delegation letter that shows that they have authority to sign on behalf of that person, and that needs to be included in the one PDF document that's uploaded. So that means you're going to scan all the pages into one PDF document. The clearer, the better. So make sure all of those pages, including any delegations, are uploaded in the system, and that can be transmitted to us for processing. So once you have status changed that uploaded document to signature submitted, we will receive notification that there's a document that's ready to be processed. So we'll go into the system and print it out same as you did. At this time, the copy that's in the system is your signed document. So we're going to verify that we received all pages and that the appropriate delegations were uploaded so that we can circulate it for execution. So we're going to send it to legal and then back to our traffic safety administrator to get the 4 required signatures for execution. Once all signatures have been received, we're going to upload that final document with all 4 signatures. That's our fully executed document with a start date of that last signature, and it'll be uploaded in the system and will change the status to subgrant awarded, at which point the system will automatically notify users that a document has been fully executed. It will indicate the start date and the ending date of the subgrant in the email notification. If for some reason you're having issues receiving the email notifications from the system, you can always log in periodically and take a look at your My Task. If a document has been awarded, it will show up as subgrant awarded in your My Task at that point. You can always regenerate a copy of that signed document by clicking on that Signatures and Amendments form and generating the executed document for yourself. So in summary, we've got an 11-step process that involves both you, the subrecipient, and FDOT. And we're all doing this process in addition to our daily duties. So at each level of review, it may actually incorporate external resources from the FDOT State Safety Office and can take some time. So please be patient as we're reviewing each step and doing what we're supposed to do to get this subgrant executed for you. If you coordinate with your program manager before making any changes to that subgrant language terms, it will expedite the review and approval process in the later steps. No purchases or activity can be conducted until the subgrant agreement is fully executed and the system status says awarded. If you have any issues with this process along the way, please feel free to reach out to the FDOT State Safety Office at any point. Also, if you have any issues with logging in or any errors in the system, you can reach out to me personally, Danielle King, and I can work with you through navigating those as well. Our contact information and forms that are required for the fiscal year are always listed out on our website provided here. We hope you found this information helpful and we wish you success in your new subgrant year.